what is the other dynamic involved here that is historic is I am racking my brain. I haven't had more than a couple breaths to do it, to try to figure out when there has been another time when a coach has left a blue blood program to go directly to another blue blood program. Because usually in these situations, there's an obvious ascension from a group of five to a power five, from a lower level power five to a higher power five. And now we have straight from blue blood to blue blood. That obviously makes the story doubly as big, because now the speculation is, who is Oklahoma going to hire? The first two names that come to mind. And folks, leave your comments and your questions. We got Matt for about another half hour, and I'm trying to group them together in terms of forming the conversation, because the two names that come to mind for me, and I see in the chat as well, Dave Aranda, Matt Campbell.
And that doesn't really rise to the blue blood to blue blood standard, given where Aranda and Campbell currently are. I'm trying to rack my brain too. I haven't really given that question a lot of thought, but like Mark Richt, coached at Georgia, then he went to Miami. So, but I mean, like Miami's brand had been eroded when Richt went to Miami. So like he certainly wasn't going to Miami at the height of the U's powers. So like that's not really a clean fit. So yeah, I mean, you're right that in terms of jumping from one blue blood to another, it's extremely rare. And that's another part of, what makes this, so remarkable, that, Lincoln Riley had, like, what more could Lincoln Riley want at Oklahoma? Like what was lacking? What was not provided for him? What was not set up on a silver platter for him to succeed, have the maximum chance of getting the best recruits? Like his recruiting was going gangbusters. I don't follow Oklahoma with razor close, precision. I have to follow USC here, but like I know that Oklahoma was doing really well on the trail, and of course, he had Caleb Williams coming back next year, and one would think that Williams is going to be in 2022 what Lincoln Riley hoped Spencer Rattler was going to be this year in 2021. When Oklahoma has the elite quarterback operating at the height of his powers, which Caleb Williams might indeed be next year, that's when OU is set up to win the national title. So like it didn't pan out for Spencer Rattler, but it seemed likely to pan out for Caleb Williams, given everything that he did as a freshman. So yeah, it just, like a week later, a month later, I'm still going to be scratching my head at this turn of events and how it all came down. It's still a puzzler, and it reinforces your point about how absolutely rare this is in the larger workings of college football and college football history.
Nick Saban, Urban Meyer going from elite job to elite job, but 1 or 2 years removed based on Nick Saban going to the NFL between LSU and Alabama. Urban Meyer, of course, taking a year off between Florida and Ohio State. And other than that, Nick Saban leaving Michigan State to go to LSU, that's not blue blood to blue blood. It's a very power program at Michigan State, but more of the top 25 to 30 variety going to an LSU. And I probably should have been more clear in regards to Aranda and Campbell, not necessarily filling that question or answering that question, but in regards to filling the Oklahoma job, being candidates for that job.
Oh, absolutely. Front of the line. I would say that Matt Campbell, given his offensive acumen, that's probably if we're going to assume that Caleb Williams will not transfer, or if we're going to assume that, which coach would offer the better chance of retaining Caleb Williams and preventing him from entering the transfer portal, it's probably Matt Campbell instead of Aranda. Now, of course, if you went with Aranda, he seems like a guy who's ready to succeed at a bigger job. So like, I don't think you could go wrong if you're Oklahoma with Aranda or Campbell. I think both are excellent choices. But I think if you want to retain Caleb Williams and you want to give Caleb Williams the best chance of succeeding next year, if that is a priority, I think that Campbell has a slight edge over Aranda as a fit for Oklahoma. But really, if Oklahoma hires Aranda, one thing that does right there is it instantly makes Oklahoma the favorite over Baylor because Baylor's not going to come up with a better coach than Aranda, most likely. So like you don't have to worry about Baylor's defense anymore. You remove that piece of the chessboard. Oklahoma certainly could have used facing Baylor without Dave Aranda this year. That was the difference between the Sooners making the Big 12 championship game and not. So like there's no wrong answer for Oklahoma if it's Campbell or Aranda. But I think that if retaining Caleb Williams and getting the most out of him in 2022 is a centerpiece consideration, you go with Campbell first.
To your point, and to extend on it on the recruiting front, Bob Stoops was bringing in top 10 or 12 classes at Oklahoma generally. Lincoln Riley raised that bar to pushing top 5 status in recruiting at Oklahoma. And my thought was possibly he could parlay the move to the SEC, much like Texas A&M did, to make that connection. Oklahoma recruiting well in Texas, but then adding on that caveat of playing in the SEC, and again, much like Texas A&M, being able to parlay that into even greater recruiting success. Now Lincoln Riley goes to USC. I'm going to divide these questions. Don't want to throw too much at you here. Number one would be
I'm up for it. Don't worry.
Well, we'll stay on the recruiting portion of this. We know that California has incredible talent, that historically and even going to the recent past, Texas, California, Florida have pretty much filled 40% of the top 300 recruits in the nation on a consistent basis. California has dropped off considerably. And when I say considerably, I still mean it's well within the top 5, but Georgia's certainly improved, and California is losing top level prospects, both in regards to the high school products, but also they're leaving the state. So your thoughts about the state of high school football play in California right now, maybe not being quite what it's been in the past?
You know, I see modern day highlights and other highlights of Southern California based high school programs. And I still see elite talent. I think, you know, if you ask USC fans, you know, if the caliber of high school football in the Southern California region has declined, I think you'll get a lot of pushback on that. I think the main thing with Clay Helton and why USC went downhill, it wasn't the caliber of talent in the area. It was two things. One, Clay Helton didn't lock down the area. You know, he allowed Lincoln Riley and Oklahoma, among other programs, to come in and grab talent. Let's remember that Ohio State's quarterback, C.J. Stroud, Clemson's quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei, and Bryce Young of Alabama, all Southern California kids. Like so they were getting away from USC. So there's plenty of talent there. And so Clay Helton wasn't locking that down. But the other thing is Clay Helton didn't develop talent. You know, Sam Darnold was a unique improvisational genius. You know, that really wasn't anything that Clay Helton or his staff did. It was Darnold just having this sixth sense on the football field. And you saw that as soon as he left in 2018, everything went downhill. And you've seen the past 3 seasons, Keaton Slovis regress. You know, started out well in 2019, but then steadily regressed. Now, you know, Jackson Dart, you got to give Graham Harrell, the offensive coordinator, some credit. Like Jackson Dart looks like the real deal, and he played a great game against BYU. And it's worth touching on this point in terms of USC and what it's capable of. USC wasn't good in the first half, but USC's second half against what is now a 10-2 BYU team ranked number 13 in the country, that was the best half the USC's played all season since the second half when it knocked out Washington State back in mid-September. And it brings up the point. Maybe after a long and difficult season, and maybe the USC players, you know, they just weren't up for the full 3-month slog. But with this final home game against BYU, it seemed as though the players realized, okay, we're auditioning for the new head coach. So, like, we better crank it up. Now, it's kind of a mystery why we didn't see any of this fight in any of the previous Pac-12 home games that USC played. Stanford, Oregon State, Utah, even the ugly win over a bad Arizona team. You know, that game was close. And then, of course, the complete humiliation against UCLA. We didn't see, you know, any fight from USC in those 5 games. But against BYU, whoa, where was this? Like that was a real football team that we saw against BYU. So it was as though players were realizing, oh, we better put on a good showing, for this new incoming head coach now that, an announcement's going to be coming around. I mean, I don't think the players were consciously thinking of that, but how else to explain why this team was just dead as a doornail at home all season until this BYU finale? So, that performance against BYU should be very clear. Even before Lincoln Riley was hired, I wrote very early Sunday morning that it shows that, USC can win the Pac-12 in 2022. Even after, having being a 4-7 team, not going to make a bowl game, doesn't matter. You saw a good talent competing against BYU. And so now with Lincoln Riley, zero question, none, that USC is the preseason favorite in the Pac-12 for 2022. There should be no doubt in anyone's mind.